All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Jeff Sloss. I'm the Controls Marketing Manager at Zoeller. This is our third Z-Control webinar. We've had two others, and they are recorded. You're able to watch them online. The first one was an intro to Z-Control Cloud technology. The second was a Z-Control Cloud webinar part 2, connecting and configuring devices and accounts. So again, those are recordings that are listed at zoellerpumps.com. There's a training tab that you can click on e-training, and they'll be listed right there. They're also on the Zoeller YouTube channel. So just a couple of details before we get going on the information. Note that the email address written on the bottom of your screen there, you can send us emails anytime at that address, even if it's after the webinar is over, and we will get back to you hopefully with some good answers. All right, so now that we've covered those basics, my name's Jeff Sloss. I'm the Controls Marketing Manager at Zoeller. I've been at Zoeller for just about 8 years now. And really my whole role is to try to help guide what we're going to offer as a company to the consumer in the way of electronics and controls. And really our big push has been to incorporate more technology, utilize what's available to make our products smarter, to also make them be connected. So obviously a big part of this whole push to have smarter electronics was to first build out a platform called Z-Control, which is of course what we're covering today. This particular webinar, we're going to look at a bunch of the technology issues that people bump up against. So these are more or less common calls that we get into our product support, calls that I get personally. The vast majority are related to the user or the user's existing equipment, not necessarily to the Zoeller or the Flint and Walling or whatever Z-Control enabled equipment. So we're going to look at some network questions, some router questions, that kind of thing. Okay, we'll get right to it. So we're going to start with a couple polls. Did you attend or watch any of our previous webinars? So just pick the most appropriate answer there. All right, good. All right, a second question. What is your exposure to connecting products to the Z-Control Cloud platform? Basically, what's your experience level? All right, great, thank you. All right, you can get an idea that obviously most people have never connected a product and they're calling in to learn how, so that's great. All right, we're going to keep going here. Real briefly, I think most of you know what Z-Control is, but just as a brief reminder, it's really remote access to your pump equipment, the ability to control it remotely. The technology that's kind of baked into that whole thing would be the ability for the controls to test and diagnose various components of the system, whether it's a pump or a switch or a battery or a charger. You get early notification of high water conditions or component faults. You get notification via text, email, and app push. And on some products, you can do real-time troubleshooting. So it's not just a matter of convenience. Like many other products in the IoT world, they're kind of fun, they're convenient. Really with the Zoeller products, this gives the user, the consumer, the plumber, the whoever, confidence that the product is going to work and protect property. And that is a key issue with why Zoeller is in this area, so that we can provide real-time peace of mind about our products. So there are 3 basic steps to connect a device to Z-Control, and we're not going to go into this in detail. I'm just going to review it real quick. There's a whole other webinar on this particular subject, so you can review that in our archive. 3 basic steps. 1, you're going to connect the Z-Control device to your router. There's a bunch of devices. Number 2, you're going to log in or create an account at zcontrolcloud.com. And then once in your account, on whatever location you've created, and you can have as many as you want, but you're going to add new device to that particular location. And If you've gone through the steps properly, you now have a tile in your account that represents the device. You can do all three of these steps with your phone, your tablet, or Wi-Fi equipped computer. So we're going to troubleshoot those three steps. For router connection, until you get the solid blue Z-Control LED that indicates the device is online, there's no reason to go on to the other two. I mean, you could certainly create a Z-Control Cloud account ahead of time, but if you're trying to add a new device before you have a device connected to the cloud, you're not going to be successful. So you need to focus your troubleshooting on getting that solid blue Z-Control LED. That is the bottom line. You can log in and create your account, and then you can add the new device. Again, don't try to add a device to the account until the device is connected. All right, just one slide on the perspective and the predicament that we are all in as users and sellers and representatives in this industry and these types of products. And I'm just going to read this because it is kind of important that we understand this. Router connectivity issues, they make up most of the questions we receive. The suggestions on the following pages of this webinar, they're mostly related to the technology in general. The vast majority of troubleshooting is due to user error and not understanding their existing internet equipment. Therefore, it's important to understand our predicament. And that is, our time spent troubleshooting is done as an unpaid customer service that often has nothing to do with the problem with the Z-Control equipment. When the issue is eventually remedied, the assistance provided is often unappreciated because the user felt this was part of the setup of our product. Now, we can kind of maybe have little nuances all over the place with that, but that's just the reality of where we work, and we just we can't really get upset about it. There's just a lot of troubleshooting that just goes right along with this technology. We're doing our best to try to make it as simple and non-frustrating for people as possible, and we are always looking for what is the next way to do that and what is the next technology to implement. You don't want to jump ship every 3 months or anything, but you got to pick the winners and you have to have a good plan to move forward with those. Okay, the number one troubleshooting issue with router connections is the Wi-Fi password. Incorrect entry of the Wi-Fi password is definitely the most common and easiest to resolve issue. So I try to get people to think about it. You know, they often are using the wrong password. They're using a password that they use at work or at, for a different reason. And I try to get them to think, what's the password that you give to friends that come over to your house and want to connect to your Wi-Fi? And a lot of times, the reaction then is kind of, oh, that password. They've been using another one all along, or maybe they weren't capitalizing or whatever it is. But it's when the captive screen of our device says, hey, tell me which router to use and tell me its password, that's the password. I know we all probably think that that's pretty obvious, but it's still the number one troubleshooting issue and easily solved. All right, now we're going to get into some more router Wi-Fi networking and the bands that Wi-Fi uses. Our devices utilize the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. We get asked all the time why. People think faster is better, so they don't understand why wouldn't we choose the 5 gigahertz band instead of the slower 2.4 gigahertz band radios in our products. 2.4, as of right now, is the better band to use. Our application, a device sitting and sending some data to a cloud, the speed, that doesn't matter. Range matters. Our devices are down in the corner of the basement, maybe just at the edge of the range of that router. We need range more so than we need speed. Speed, 5 gigahertz, you want to use that band absolutely if you're streaming movies and that kind of thing. We'll never use all the speed available at 2.4, let alone 5 gigahertz. So the reason 2.4 has more range is its frequency wave can travel through walls and other obstacles much easier. 5 gigahertz can't travel as far around your house because its higher frequency also means higher attenuation. It can't get through those walls. Those waves get knocked down a lot easier. 2.4 gigahertz is also lower power. And because it's lower power, there's longer life. That's important for us. Many of our devices operate in a battery mode. So we really have to pay attention to the power that's being used. Just one comment about the signal strength. If somebody's saying, well, it keeps dropping, the first thing to check is, stand right where that Z control device is. Stand in the basement or wherever it is. Stand there with your mobile phone. And don't just take an immediate snapshot of the Wi-Fi signal strength, but look at the Wi-Fi signal strength and see if it's solid. Does it have 3, 4, 5, whatever bars, or is it at 2? Does it fluctuate? Look at it for about 30 seconds. Because if it fluctuates, if you look at it 1 second, it looks strong, and then you look away and it's fluctuating, it's possible that our product is going to drop that connection, even though you were under the impression it was a strong signal. So it's just something to do. That will basically tell you if a range extender might help. A range extender is a $30, maybe $50 device that you can buy at an electronics store or online, whatever. And it basically just, you put it in the middle of the Wi-Fi range, the range of the signal, and then it repeats it. It makes it go further. And then the other thing is, oftentimes people get to the point where they're a little bit stuck. They actually can't remember, what step they're in. And we're going to cover resets on a different page for the device, but resetting the router sometimes is a big help. I have to warn that when you reset a router, there's custom settings that administrators may have put in that are needed, and those are possibly going to get wiped out by a reset. So that's definitely not something you want to do without knowing what you're doing. You don't want all the static IPs and port forwarding rules that administrators have set up in a building to get wiped out just because you're trying to install the pump or the alarm. That's just going to make people even more aggravated. So another word about the interference of the 2.4 gigahertz band. That can be a crowded band in the house. Some microwaves and things like baby monitors and the older style cordless phones, those may all use that 2.4 gigahertz band. So if there's a regular disconnect and reconnect going on with Z control, and a lot of times you know that because you're getting a notification about it. But if that's happening, some experimenting might be a good idea, where you turn those things off and see if that continues. We were troubleshooting with somebody and they were having this intermittent kind of temporary dropping out of the signal, and finally tracked it down to a microwave running. The baby monitors could be another thing, and the cordless phones, like we mentioned. Even things like anything electrically noisy could potentially provide interference that makes the connection drop. So air handlers, fans, things to do with the furnace. Some of the big air handlers and air conditioners have VFDs built in. Those put out a lot of noise, electrical noise I'm talking about. So you could have a device at one end of the house and your router, it might be nearby, it might be at the other end of the house, but there's a fairly clear path between the two. But somewhere in between, there's enough interference kind of bombarding those waves, and just some minor adjustments with what you can move can sometimes overcome the issue. Sometimes it literally moving the router over one way or the other by a foot can sometimes be all it takes to solve the issue. So just some ideas for everybody. Dual band routers are pretty much the norm these days. All that means is that it's broadcasting both a 2.4 gigahertz signal and a 5 gigahertz band. So it's utilizing both, and it's able to manage traffic on both bands. What happens is a lot of these routers nowadays, they combine those two bands into a single broadcast name. So Jeff's house is the name of my SSID, which is the name of my Wi-Fi. Maybe it's called Jeff's house, but you don't see that it's both 5 and 2.4. So sometimes what you have to do is you log into your router and you separate the two. You create two different broadcasts so that they appear differently when you pull up your list on your phone or whatever it is you're trying to connect. So you might have one that says Jeff's Wi-Fi 2.4, Jeff's Wi-Fi 5, something like that. The other thing that routers commonly do now is they auto select the band to use. So a device gets on, it's connected, and the router sees that, hey, this other band has a lot less traffic, so it'll switch it over to that other band. Potentially, that drops the connection because our product can only communicate on 2.4. If a router forces it over to 5.0, the connection could drop because it doesn't know what to do with that. So if you don't see the 2.4, or it seems like the device connects but then immediately drops, that's what this page is for. Somebody may have to log into the router. Usually that's an administrator. To do that, the username and password to log into most routers is admin and admin, or admin and password. But there could be actual custom login creds. So you can Google the make and model of your router and it'll show you the default credentials to log into the router. And sometimes, like if the router's from a cable company or something, it'll be printed right on the router so you can see how to log into that router. But you got to log in, give the 2.4 gigahertz band its own name so that it isn't just combined in and invisible. It's distinct from the 5 gigahertz. Verify that the 2.4 gigahertz band SSID is broadcasting. That just means look on your phone, see if you can see it listed. And then the choice whether to broadcast should be set to enabled if it isn't broadcasting. And then perhaps the last thing you might need to do is disable the auto select feature, where you're allowing the router to move devices to the other band. Somebody's bound to ask, are we doing something different in the future? We are looking at it. You know, when we designed all these products, 2.4 gigahertz was the clear way to go. We're watching to see if the manufacturers make these types of modules with dual capability. I mean, that would be great if we could work something like that into this product, into our collection of products. But right now, that's not the commonly available technology. So we are keeping our eye on it. And we're with everybody else when we say that that's where we'd like to go. It'd be great, because if you've got 5 gigahertz coverage, then maybe that solves some problems for people. So, but it's just not something we can do right this minute. Our devices, they only connect to secure networks. So you're not going to get an APAC alarm or an Aquanaut fit or anything like that to connect to an open network. And an open network mainly just means there's no password involved. If you can get on the network without a password, you're not going to be able to connect our product. The other network that you cannot log into is WEP, W-E-P. That is inherently susceptible to the hacks that are out there. So that's a very unsecure network. WPA and WPA2 are the most common typical networks you will see that you can connect to. There is a WPA3 that's coming. It's nothing worth talking about right now because from my impressions, it looks like it's mostly commercial, at least to begin with. Maybe a couple of years down the road, that'll become a residential thing. But for most of our products that are residential applications, we don't have to worry about WPA3 right now. But of course, we're keeping our eye on it. So a couple other notes about router connection tips and troubleshooting. Channel width should be narrow if that comes up and somebody asks. I'm not an expert in this area, but I know that there's definitely an advantage to choosing the 20 channel width instead of the 40. Sometimes you're asked when you're doing a setup which to choose. The narrower one is better. 2.4 gigahertz recommended channels are 1, 6, 9, and 11, if that were to come up. Sometimes a neighbor's Wi-Fi is creating congestion because they're using the same channel. You can change channels. It's possible to do. It's probably not something that somebody that doesn't know what they're doing should be logging in and making these types of changes. This is to the router, by the way, not to our equipment. But for somebody experienced with that, these are simple things. There are analyzers, the IT guys, they have these both hardware, software solutions where they can analyze what exactly is going on with the congestion and channels and who's doing what in the area. So that could be helpful. A couple other things is DHCP creates a lease, and the leases typically have an end time on them. Now, most of the time, a lease, which is just the time or the allowance of all these IP addresses to be in use, usually that will just renew on its own. There's no action necessary by the homeowner to renew something like that. But who knows, maybe the last time somebody was in a router, they accidentally unclicked the auto renew box or something. So it's at least something to look at. You can hard renew it. I did hear one time that solved somebody's problem. Again, that wasn't a problem with our equipment. It was just something somebody had done in a router. And one other customer had ran out of IP addresses. So your router assigns IP addresses to new devices. Usually it will, when a device doesn't use an address anymore, it'll reuse it later. But in this guy's case, it had used up all the 100 or 200 IP addresses that the router was allowed to assign. And as soon as he expanded that range to 500 or whatever it was he did, everything started working fine. So again, probably more of a technical thing for somebody with more experience to make changes, but you can reference them to this page if you'd like. Resetting our units. So this is the reset of our product, not the reset of the router. Sometimes maybe you're helping a customer and you don't know where he is. Whenever I start helping a customer, if it's not immediately apparent where they are and what needs to be done, I will typically do resets. It just gets everybody on the same page. You know where you're starting. So there's 3 different resets. First one we're not really talking about here. That's just an alarm. So if there's an alarm and you press the silence button once and let go, that's silence. If you press it and hold it for a few seconds, that's a reset. So you're clearing the alarm out of the device. The second type of reset is a Wi-Fi reset. So sometimes if somebody, for example, put a wrong password in when they were trying to get it on Wi-Fi, and now it just keeps trying this wrong password, and you want it to start broadcasting Wi-Fi again so that you can start over. In that case, you want to reset the Wi-Fi. So on the FIT and on the gateway, there's a little hole with a recessed button that you can only reach with like a pen or a toothpick. There's also a little button on the circuit boards of control panels that are coming out. If you hold that Wi-Fi reset button for about 12 seconds, you're going to clear out Wi-Fi settings and the Wi-Fi of the device will start broadcasting again. So it's pretty simple, just to press and hold that button 12 seconds. It'll wipe out creds and start broadcasting its name again so that you can connect to it. On an APAC, it's a little different because we don't have that reset button. You remove the AC power, you hold down the silence button while putting the power back on, continue to hold the button for about 5 more seconds, and the APAC will do a little reset and start broadcasting its Wi-Fi again. So now you can go with your phone or whatever you're using to connect back up to that APAC. All this is in the instructions for each of these products, and all the instructions for every product are on our website. So this isn't hidden or secret information, it's all out there. A little note on the Wi-Fi, if the user does nothing for about 10 minutes on the APAC, the Wi-Fi does revert to its previous settings. So it's expecting that you want to rebroadcast the Wi-Fi, but if you don't connect to it, it's going to go, okay, that must have been a mistake, and it's just going to revert to what it was. So, and sometimes their APAC is giving them a beep because there's no batteries, and they want to tell the APAC, hey, there is no batteries, quit alarming me for that reason. That's the same reset you would do for that, just as an FYI. Not related to this webinar really, but just a little side note. All right, and the last reset is basically a hard reset. This is a factory reset. On the APAC, you hold that silence button for 12 seconds. And whenever I say seconds, I mean actual, 1/1000, 2/1000 type seconds. On FIT and SPIN, hold the silence and test buttons together for about 6 seconds, and you'll see everything reset. That just puts everything back to factory settings, and now you know how to help a customer again. You know where you're at. Okay. Account creation. This isn't too difficult. Most of the hangups there hasn't been a lot of hangups on this, but occasionally we get one, somebody's going and creating their account at Z-Control Cloud, and they get stuck on a password. We're going to put the password rules right up there up front so they know what they are before they try a password. Unfortunately, that isn't the case I think on the website right now. but it is 8 digits minimum. There's a number, a special character, a capital letter, a small letter, and then you have to have 8. So if they put it in wrong, it'll return a message to them that says, hey, you're missing whatever. And then if they add that and there's still something missing, they're going to get another message saying, oh, you're still missing this. It's kind of annoying the way it's set up right now. We recognize that, and it is being changed. The week of April 3rd, there's a whole bunch of changes that you'll see on the website. That is one of them. Completing the process of account creation is really the only other issue that we've seen or heard of. And usually that's because there's another browser window connected to zcontrolcloud.com that's open. I don't think it's a stretch for me to say every time somebody's having this problem where the cloud is returning this weird message that they can't move around, they can't log in. If they close all the windows in the browser and then log in again, open a new window and log back in, 9 times out of 10, that's going to take care of it right there. So, and really that applies to any website. You can hang somebody's website up because they've got 2 different instances and there's just a little bit confusion in the background. So just log out, close all the browser windows, and then reopen the browser and log back in. Worst case scenario, open a different browser. So instead of using Firefox, open Chrome and log in there. That's the 1 out of 10 that the first 9 doesn't cover. The only other thing is I didn't get the validation email. Again, I think I can say I don't think there's any exceptions to this right now. We've never actually been able to document that our system didn't send a validation email. Now, it is definitely possible that a customer's internet service provider or their email provider rejected it. That's certainly possible. But almost every time, if the customer gives it a few minutes and then checks the junk folder, sometimes it ends up coming into their inbox, but if not, check the junk folder. It's almost always there. I don't think we've ever hit a hard wall there on that issue. So this is just basically what the interfaces look like. On the left, it's the web interface. You got the website itself, and you can see the Aquanaut Fit there in the Center for Excellence location. You can see what it looks like when something's offline. It won't be colorful. It'll say offline. It'll be grayed out. And then on the right there, that is a screenshot of the app. We'll get back to that app screen in a second. Those of you that have used zControl might notice that looks a lot different. And yes, it is. And that's one of our accomplishments in the past few weeks here. So we'll get back to that in a second. All right, let's talk about device sharing for a few minutes. Questions posed. The owner and plumber both want access and notifications from the same device. Do I add a contact to my account or do I share the device? Well, in this case, this type of example, device sharing would be the better choice. On the other hand, you might want to choose to add the person as a contact to the account through the Manage Contact link, just if that person's the same household. But if we're talking about people in different households that are going to log in differently, etc., almost always the sharing of the device is going to be better. So adding a contact versus sharing a device. When you add a contact, the device is just in one account, and all the contacts that have access to it, they're part of the same account, which means all those people all log into the same account. They're all sharing the same login credentials. They're all getting the same notifications because that account is determining how everybody in the account is notified, whether it's email, text, or push notification. When you go through a device and you check which alarms you want and to what kind of devices they're going, everybody in the account is subject to those same rules, as opposed to sharing a device. When you share a device, the device is visible from more than one account. Unrelated parties, they log into their own account. They're able to see the same device from different accounts. That way they can have their own credentials that are kept private. What I mean by that is if I'm sharing my credentials as a homeowner and I want my plumber involved, maybe I don't want to share my login and password with my plumber to log into my account. That's where I would share it with him, and he can put it in his own account, or it'll pop up in his own account through the sharing process. The other thing is you can customize how you receive notifications. So you allow any other account to have access to your device. That's bullet number 1 for device sharing. Bullet number 2 is you allow for easier management of multiple properties and devices. So a couple examples. A plumber receives alerts from many of his customers' devices and can manage everything from a single account. He doesn't have to go log into Mrs. Smith's account and then Mrs. Jones' account. He's just got them all on his account because all those customers shared their devices to his account. A building management company monitors many locations with many devices. Individual property owners can also monitor the devices that are only applicable to them. A neighbor or relative can monitor the device of an elderly couple's home in the same account as his own devices. So a couple device sharing notes. The actual device owner, the one that actually owns the product, can revoke shared access at any time. Maybe I don't like my plumber anymore and I'm going to switch to a different one, or maybe I don't like my brother-in-law anymore. The actual device owner controls device settings. The device settings cannot be changed by shared owners. So I have my Aquanaut Fit. It self-tests every 3 days at 10:15 a.m. Whoever I share that device with, they're not going to be able to change that type of behavioral setting. I'm the device owner, I own it. I'm the only one that can change that. An account may have any mix of owned devices and shared devices. So you don't have to have separate accounts or anything like that. All right. So those of you that have used Z-Control noticed in that slide a few slides ago that there was a screen with a new looking app, and that is true. We just launched a brand new app. This is a big deal for these two reasons. The app now can do everything the website does. So it used to be that you had to do all your setup and everything from the website, and then the app you could use. It was nice, but you only could use it really to view devices. You could silence a device if it was an alarm. You could push a button to test a pump, but you could not set up a new device. You couldn't create an account. You couldn't create a new location or change settings. Everything that you can do on the website, you can do now with the brand new app. And it's not an updated app, it's a whole new app. There's a whole new platform, whole new app. So this does now provide the easiest way to get a device online and added to an account. Okay, on the left there, that's just the startup screen of the app. On the right is my own account. So it's just a list of device locations that I have that have devices in them. And you can see in the parentheses how many are in that location. So it's a fresh new interface. The navigation is, I think, very intuitive. You can have unlimited locations, you can have unlimited devices, unlimited email and push notifications. I would say unlimited text. We've never had to limit it, but I say nearly unlimited just because text does cost us money, cost the company money. So we do reserve the right to limit it if there's something strange going on. But we haven't had to do that yet. Not just the app, but the whole Z-Control platform and background. This is all Zoeller built and managed. Actually, we had a little bit of help to create this app just because we wanted to get it done in a real timely manner. And our IT and IS departments are pretty overwhelmed. So we did bring in some help and got the app built, but it's all managed by us. And of course, it's all free to the user. Going back to the intuitive navigation bullet point, on the screen there on the right, you'll notice the screenshot there, there's a little plus button. So, we're on the locations page, so we think it's pretty intuitive that hitting the plus button would allow you to create a new location. So that's the kind of thing I'm referring to. These screenshots, just a little bit more detail. So if I click into the Fisherville house location, you can see the devices that are sitting in that location on the left there. And if I click the top one, the APAC high water alarm, it opens up the screenshot on the right. And you'll notice on the screenshot on the right down below, I've got access to all my notification. That's selecting how I'm going to get notified, push, email, and text. I've got all the details of the device, settings. There's my sharing link right there, real easy. And all the history, the activity log. So you can do all of your customizing and your behavioral changes, all that are done right here through the app. If you look at that left screenshot again, notice up there where it says Fisherville House and there's the plus sign. So I've decided I got a new product. I bought a new product. I'm going to add it to my account. I'm going to go into the location that I want to add the account. So I'm in the Fisherville House location, and I'm going to hit plus. That's going to bring up, I'm not going to show it, but it brings up basically a scanning screen, and you're able to scan the data matrix on the device and add it to the account. It's really that simple. I mean, it walks you through it. Before you're able to scan, there's a couple of steps that we give just to make sure that people know that they have to come back into the app. But other than that, it's very intuitive, very simple. The whole history is recorded and sorted in that activity log link. And lastly, the sharing for flexible management. So we're pretty excited about the new app. It's a big improvement. We are at the end of the presentation portion of the webinar, and I'm going to go quiet just for a moment here and collect any questions we might have. All right, here's the question. Delta Faucet Company offers a concierge service for troubleshooting installations of their touch and voice activated faucets, which is nothing more than a dedicated 1-800 number. Has Zoeller thought about allocating resources to create a similar service? This feature has greatly enhanced proper installation practices and has won over plumbing contractors, reps, and consumers. That's a great question and a great idea. At this point, for any of you that have called in for help, we have a couple guys in product support that are more trained with the Z-Control platform, have more familiarity to help try to answer questions than others. And the calls are usually routed to them. We don't have a dedicated number at this point. The question is, have we given thought to doing that? I think that we will, especially as we grow. I'll take that as a comment and as a suggestion, because it isn't something in place, but we can certainly look at it. Here's another question. Is the factory troubleshooting contact info on the packaging or device? Well, I think the phone number for customer support is on all of the products, all of our documentation of products. So I think I can answer that question in the affirmative. Since it isn't a direct line, it's just the same line, and then you choose the product support link. Somebody could verify for me, but I think that's 6. When you call in via phone, you're choosing number 6 for product support. I'm just reviewing the other questions here. Make sure we didn't leave any unanswered. There may not be any more here, so if there's any other questions, you can email them to webinars@zoeller.com. Thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and conclude the question and answer period. You can always email us, and thank you once again for joining the webinar.